When Blake Lively subpoenaed the defendant's dog walker's cousin's TikTok account, they found some really suspicious activity.
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi and welcome to Flossom Talk. I'm Sashti Flaw, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. Hello everyone, there's been another 700 pages that's been added to this legal drama since yesterday. It's bananas. But here's the breaking news. While Blake Lively was heroically enduring the trauma of internet backlash by walking red carpets in fresh off the runway couture, Justin Baldoni was engaged in very suspicious activities, like not posting. He was on Hawaii with his family, his children, his wife, far away from the flashing lights and Instagram filters. Highly suspicious behavior for a man being accused of cyber warfare via comment sections. Yeah, while Blake was enduring unimaginable hardships, stepping onto red carpets in fresh off the runway designer gowns, smiling through the trauma, debuting a new outfit for every subpoena, Justin and his digital army was controlling every TikTok and YouTube algorithm and group chat from Maui to Mars to make sure that people didn't like her. But let's not get distracted, because the real story here is Blake, a woman so beloved, so universally cherished, that the very idea of someone disliking her has now become the foundation of a federal lawsuit. Because nothing says target of cyber abuse like arriving on a film premiere in a custom Chanel while claiming your emotional distress was caused by someone's TikTok caption. Some legal experts are calling this a bold new frontier in litigation, feelings-based lawfare. If successful, this case could open the door for millions of fragile public figures, so they also can sue everyone with a Wi-Fi connection and an opinion. Stay tuned, because while the defendant remains suspiciously barefoot in a hammock somewhere, Blake Lively is courageously fighting justice, one screenshot of a TikTok comment at a time. We salute your bravery, Blake. May your publicists never rest. Critics says that this might have a chilling effect on free speech. Supporters are saying, great. Speech is so messy anyways. Feelings get hurt. And if we don't start holding everyday citizens accountable for their YouTube commentary, what even is justice? Disliking someone like Blake Lively is not only wrong, it's illegal. Because let's be honest, there's no way that regular people can look at Blake Lively, a red carpet survivor, couture-clad warrior of controlled narratives, and think by themselves, something's off. No, these are clearly compromised individuals, lost souls, victims of digital hypnosis. Because if you hate Blake, you're either programmed to do so or you don't exist. That makes you either a bot or a pawn if you have ever criticized Blake Lively. And I think now they really found the untraceable traces of the untraceable smear campaign, because when Blake Lively subpoenaed the defendant's dog walker's cousin's TikTok account, they found some really suspicious activity. Yes. This is what's happening, you guys. And Blake Lively has filed her third amended complaint to the judge. And guess what? There is so much evidence here. So now this smear campaign, as you know, that she's alleging against Justin Baldoni and Wayfair, it didn't really end when she filed these lawsuits, because when she filed the lawsuit, Justin Baldoni and Wayfair didn't only hire Ryan Friedman to defend them, they also hired him to be a part of the smear campaign. And that's why Blake Lively's team also is subpoenaing Brian Friedman. But let's get back to that later, because this is so funny, you guys. When I was reading through some of this amended complaint, I was thinking to myself, Can you imagine how embarrassing this is for Blake Lively's lawyers to be filing all this rubbish? They are just creating this illusion and this conspiracy theory that makes no sense. Even if you're in kindergarten, you would be like, no, this doesn't make any sense, Your Honor. This is so dumb that we need a new word for dumb. Okay, so Blake Lively, in her amended complaint, amongst other things, obviously, it's 149 or 170 pages, so I haven't read all of it, but I did find some stuff that I thought was specifically interesting here. So as you remember, Blake Lively showed up at another Simple Favor, the premiere, and people didn't like her. So there were a lot of comments, and she has actually published these comments in her amended complaint that all the things, the terrible things, there's some really bad words in there, so I'm not going to read them, but there's some really terrible things that are being said about her that obviously is coming from bots or people that have been paid to say so, because it's impossible at that point that people disliked her. And now that also Wayfair and Justin Baldoni hired his law firm to also be a part of this smear campaign, it's so obvious what's happened here, you guys. So what they're saying here is that the vitriol and violence is unlike anything Ms. Lively has experienced in her 20 years careers, talking about the backlash or the comments that came after Another Simple Favor. And specifically, they're pointing out that someone said that Blake Lively's name was higher up than Anna Kendrick's on the poster. And they were saying, you know, of course, she took direction of this film when she produced it, blah, 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 all those comments that they're in there. And then they're saying that she hasn't experienced this in 20 years, so it can't be real. At no point until the initiation of defendant's campaign, Justin's smear campaign, had Ms. Lively or her family experienced anything remotely like the above. The sentiments expressed above are the terrifying results of the money, time, and human resources defendants have poured into creating an environment of hatred against Ms. Lively and her family. I think especially, this is so funny because when Justin Baldoni was sued for like, I don't know how many $1 million she wants from him, it's unclear. But at that point, would you then continue, if he ever had done anything to smear her, would you then continue to do that and then hire a lawyer to do it too, to pay people to talk about them? I mean, it's so far-fetched, you guys. Then she's saying that this campaign has been devastating. This campaign has been devastating to Ms. Lively, including by causing substantial harm to Ms. Lively, her family, as well as her businesses and all people who work at each of them. Unlike Wayfarer and Mr. Baldoni, Ms. Lively has been precluded from not only experiencing the success of the film, but also from having the ability to engage further with her businesses, fans, and social media followers, with immediately triggering an onslaught of hateful and violent comments. Well, she did not stay away from social media. She's been posting until recently. Maybe now she's listening, like, stay away from social media, because now you really have to show that you have experienced so much trauma. But here they're claiming she hasn't engaged in her businesses. All she's been doing since she filed these lawsuits is attend red carpets and premieres and events, and also promoting new products. Like every week, there's a new product from Blake Lively. So this is just BS. She's been pictured in different outfits in the media since every day almost since she filed this complaint against Baldoni in December of 2024. So who are they trying to fool here? And it says that this dramatic drop was completely at odds with the high satisfaction scores that Blake Brown produced. They're saying that people really like Blake Brown, and then because of Justin Baldoni, they didn't like it anymore, and she has suffered so much from people not buying her hair products. Around the same time, the social media account for Miss Lively's brands, including Betty Buzz and Betty Booze, were flooded by hateful comments, which began to echo through other social media and traditional media outlets. She forgets to mention that I think 90% of all the press that she has received has been favorable of her. I think the only outlets that I've seen that have been unfavorable towards Blake Lively or I could say being honest in their reporting here, is the Daily Mail and sometimes also the New York Post, page 6. Otherwise, she had, for example, the powerful New York Times behind her, and all the women's magazines, Glamour, Elle, Vogue. I mean, all of them have been supporting her. So, what is she talking about here? Give us one major traditional media outlet that has been critical of Blake Lively and not painted her as a victim here. This is not a pity Hollywood feud. She's framing it as a deliberate campaign to silence a whistleblower. She's calling herself a whistleblower now. She's not only a victim, she's also a whistleblower that's trying to silence all other whistleblowers. She's claiming that corporate power, billionaire funding, media manipulation, and legal intimidation is what Baldoni's team have been using against her. It's funny, when I read that, I was like, oh, those are all the things that she's been doing. But this is what we keep seeing with Blake Lively. Everything she's accusing him of doing, she's done herself. Also, interestingly enough, as I said, they have no evidence. They keep claiming things like defendants and their agents also sought to influence journalists to cover the story in a way that discredited Miss Lively and reinforced defendants' chosen narrative. Chosen narrative here meaning the truth. So they were implying that they didn't just plant stories, they were actively shaping how the press framed the backlash, painting Lively as a controlling diva rather than a whistleblower. Of course, they're not mentioning any names here because, as you know, they don't have any evidence. What I find so fascinating right now is how she sued Justin Baldoni and Wayfair for this retaliation campaign because she was claiming SH on the set of It Ends With Us. But now the whole story is changing. Now that's not important anymore. Now it's important what happened after she filed the lawsuit, because that's when the real backlash came, and that's when the real smear campaign started like getting out of control completely. So now she's just creating this narrative that is so absurd that I don't even know how to explain it. Yeah, like I said, these lawyers must be so embarrassed to write all this crap. They also bring in Jed Wallace into this again, saying that he was hired to blah, blah, blah. He was dismissed from the lawsuit and now they put him back in here again. So then he has to try and get dismissed again, I guess. This is just so tiresome. Yeah, I almost feel sorry for the judge having to read all of this. I'm sure he doesn't read all of it himself, though. But anyways, what's interesting here is that Blake Lively, who has hired like this CIA guy, and she's married to Ryan Reynolds, who's the owner of one of the most influential marketing and PR companies in the world, has not been able to do what Justin Baldoni has been able to do from his hammock in Hawaii. Isn't that quite interesting? He must have like superpowers or something like that to be able to fool everyone on the internet to not like Blake Lively. And he has this secret recipe of how he can make this happen, and it's completely untraceable. They're also talking more about the astroturfing here, you guys, which is basically fake public opinion. So they don't believe that opinions are real because deep down inside, we all like Blake Lively. We are just being programmed or paid to say to the world, to put on the internet that we don't like her. Yes, as you know, they haven't found any evidence yet. So now they're trying to find it in Brian Friedman's office. So Brian Friedman replied with 236 pages trying to fight the subpoena that was put on his office, because they're saying like, you were also part of the smear campaign. They're saying basically because he went to the press and did interviews and gave statements to the press that he also is a part of this, and they wants to see if he has paid off creators and influencers and journalists. I mean, it's so obvious what they're doing here. They're just burying them in legal stuff. So they have to spend time fighting these ridiculous subpoenas instead of actually going out there and finding more evidence themselves. They have to spend time now defending themselves against this kind of crap. There's something called attorney-client privilege. But they want the judge to forget about that here because we are talking about Blake Lively not being popular. So he needs to see past that and give them the right to see Brian Friedman's email or correspondence to Justin Baldoni. They also want to see all the phone calls that's been coming in and out of that office. I mean, it's so crazy, you guys. I haven't had the time to read it all because it's so long, but my gosh, this is just harassment. And talking about that, I have to applaud Ashley Brianna Eve because she is one of the content creators that have been subpoenaed, and her subpoena was withdrawn like for the rest of us. And now Ashley has written the judge to make him aware of what they've actually been up to here. Because as you know, the judge, he ruled all of this to be moot, meaning that he doesn't even have to read out any of these motions to quash. So he doesn't know what's going on here. So Ashley decided to tell him what's going on here. So bravo, Ashley. She's saying that she's one of the content creators here. And she's pointing out that Blake Lively's lawyers had been lying. They said there was a meet and confer. They publicly said in filings that there was a meet and confer with these creators. That was not true. And by saying that, they said that we got what we needed for now, meaning that if you're reading that, you think they got something, which is not true. No one gave them anything. And no one had a meet and confer with them of any of the content creators who represented themselves. Because as Ashley's saying here, I didn't want to have a phone call with them. And I told them so. There's evidence. She attached the email correspondence that she had with them saying, I don't want to have a phone call with you. I want everything in writing. Good for you, Ashley. As she's saying here, when Blake Lively's team suddenly withdrew the subpoena, that's where it gets shady. And then they asked the court to deny the motion as moot, which could create the illusion that they won. If granted, that would let them spin the narrative. Look, the motions were denied, so the creators must have cooperated. She's also showing examples from these pro Blake Lively accounts that's saying that, hey, of course they gave up some information here. Otherwise, why would they just withdraw the subpoenas? Something happened in those meet and confer meetings. So Ashley's asking the court to do more than just quash the subpoena. She wants a protective order so Blake Lively can't continue doing this because at this point, nothing's stopping her. And someone said yesterday, because there was a hearing about this subpoena against Brian Friedman's office, and there was mentioned that 107 content creators were subpoenaed. I don't know where that number came from. As far as I know, it's 43 plus Candace Owens and Paris Hilton. But I don't know. Maybe a lot of people received this and we don't know it yet. So Ashley's asking here to get a formal ruling that the subpoena was withdrawn because it couldn't survive legal challenge and not because of any cooperation. She's running a branding and marketing company. And of course, it's important for her to show that she has integrity in front of her clients. And the way that Blake Lively's team have created this narrative that it looks like we are guilty. And they did that from the beginning, because remember, they said that there was this list and that we were all on it, which was also a lie. And now they're doing this to pretend that they got something from us to just, I mean, they're just building a case out of nothing, out of air. Okay, one more story, you guys, before I go. There's an article in Men's Journal saying that Marvel drops an unexpected update on Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool 4. Following a major hit with Deadpool and Wolverine, Marvel's approach has seemingly shifted. So they're putting Deadpool 4 on the back burner. There's no explanation why that's happening, but I think if I were Marvel, I would think twice about putting Ryan Reynolds in any projects right now, because you don't know how the public is going to react to any of his new movies. As you know, his other movie, was it called Animal Friends or something like that, was pushed for almost a year. So I think they're not taking any risks. Even though he's a marketing and PR genius, I don't think people want to risk anything. Yeah, I don't think they want anything public that Ryan Reynolds is involved in right now. I can't imagine the first movie premiere for any of these two. If Blake Lively ever gets a role again, I don't know. I mean, who would hire her? But with Ryan Reynolds, Would people really applaud him now? I don't know how much the general public knows about what's going on here. But I feel like there's going to be riots the next time these guys are out on a red carpet, because what we've seen so far is so vicious. Anyways, that's it from you guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please subscribe if you haven't, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode of Flawsome Talk. And remember, my t-shirt is still for sale in my Etsy store. I'm not a bot, 100% organic, free speech. See you next time. Bye.
Yeah, we flawsome talk.